Headless haunts, death by diamond, cursed by twinning. Magic or made up, these royals seem to pass their bad luck down the family line. The Grimaldis have been the ruling family of Monaco since 1297, and they have suffered under a curse since the beginning. There are a couple of different versions of how it began. One says that Prince Renier I abducted a Flemish woman who, unhappy with that turn of events, decided to become a witch. The other involves a witch being burned at the stake. Whomever it was, the unhappy woman is said to have gotten revenge by laying out the curse plainly. Never will a Grimaldi find happiness in marriage. A look at the recent Grimaldi family relationship record makes it hard to think the curse isn't still in effect. Grace Kelly married into the family in 1956, and while she and Prince Renier III were sold to the public as a great love story, the truth was a lot more complicated than that, and there were rumors of infidelity on both sides. Renier's children fared no better. Princess Caroline has been married 3 times, divorced after 2 years, widowed at just 33 years old, and now separated. Princess Stephanie married twice, with neither union lasting even 2 years. Perhaps taking the curse seriously, the current reigning prince, Albert II, put off marriage until his early 50s, although he has fathered 2 children outside of the relationship. The Nepalese royal family's curse seems especially unfair. Nepal became a sovereign nation in the 1700s, ruled by Prithvi Narayan Shah. The story, according to Jonathan Gregson's Massacre at the Palace, the doomed royal dynasty of Nepal, begins with a hermit and a bowl of curd. One day, the king offered the bowl of curd to the hermit, who drank it, then vomited it back up. The king was disgusted, and for that, his family was cursed. The hermit had actually been the god Goraknath, and he was offended that the king wanted nothing to do with his puke. The curse said Nepal's monarchy would last 10 generations before coming to a sudden end. Unfortunately, the curse came true in the most horrific way possible. On June 1, 2001, the then king of Nepal, Birendra Bir Bikram Shah Dev, and most of his family were in the Naranhiti Palace. For reasons that are still not clear, Prince Dipendra, the king's son and heir, entered the room loaded with weapons and opened fire. He killed 9 people, including his father, mother, brother, and sister. Dipendra then tried to kill himself, but ended up in coma. He remained alive for 2 days, during which, because of how monarchies work, he was officially Nepal's king. It's thought he might have been upset about not getting to marry the woman he wanted to, although according to those who knew him, the crown prince was sadistic and unhappy. The crown passed to Birendra's brother before Nepal ended its monarchy in 2008. It lasted exactly 10 generations. Perhaps no royal family has had worse luck than the Habsburgs. The infamous Archduke Franz Ferdinand, whose assassination in 1914 led directly to World War I, was a member of this family. His uncle, Emperor Franz Joseph I, survived an assassination attempt in 1853, but barely. Franz Joseph's wife, Empress Elizabeth, was assassinated in 1898, however, while their son Rudolf died in 1889 as part of a suicide pact. Franz Joseph's brother Maximilian was executed by the Mexican government in 1867. Other family members died in a fire, or at sea, or by falling off a horse.
I think that's excessive.
What first caused all that pain? The Vintage News says that it might have been the Turnfalken, supernatural ravens that started showing up whenever anything bad was about to happen to a Habsburg. They were said to be seeking revenge over a broken promise to shelter ravens that had once saved a Habsburg prince's life. Or it could have been Emperor Franz Joseph's personal curse, laid on him by the mother of the young Count Karoli, whom Franz Joseph had executed. The Countess Karoli was said to have hexed the ruler, saying, "May heaven and hell blast your happiness. May your family be exterminated. May you be smitten in the persons of those you best love. May your children be brought to ruin, and may your life be wrecked. And yet may you live on in lonely, unbroken, and horrible grief to tremble when you recall the name of Karoli." Hemophilia, an inherited condition that makes it difficult for blood to clot, has affected almost all the royal families of Europe, thanks to Queen Victoria. The British monarch had 9 children whom she married off to various noble or royal families. While Victoria only passed on the gene that carries the disorder to 3 of her children, all the subsequent intermarrying between cousins meant the chances of hemophilia presenting was much greater than in the general population. At the time, having hemophilia meant that almost any wound could be fatal. Victoria's 8th child, Leopold, who Royal Babylon, the alarming history of European royalty, described as very delicate, died before his 31st birthday after cutting his knee in a minor fall. Queen Victoria didn't want to believe she could have been responsible for her son's illness, but chances are she also heard about the curse supposedly put on her own ancestors. One of the German branches of Queen Victoria's family was the Coburgs. The story goes that when Hungarian Princess Maria Antonia Koháry married a Coburg prince in 1815, a Koháry monk became jealous of the wealth the Coburgs inherited. As a result, he cursed future Coburg generations with disease, which might have finally presented in Queen Victoria's children and grandchildren. Scientists looking at her family's history, however, are pretty sure it came from a spontaneous mutation in the DNA of either her or her father. Legend says that the Hope Diamond might be the most cursed stone in all of history. Unfortunately, a lot of the legend was likely made up as part of a sales pitch by famous jeweler Pierre Cartier in 1910. That's not to say none of the stories of the curse are true, however, and plenty of the people who have come to awful ends while in possession of the Hope Diamond have been royalty. In 1668, the French King Louis XIV acquired the stone from a jeweler who had purchased it in India. According to Patricia Van Thorpe's The World's Most Mysterious Objects, Louis loaned it to an acquaintance named Nicolas Fouquet for a period of time. But when Fouquet fell out of favor with the king, he was sentenced to life in prison, with some accounts suggesting he was the infamous Man in the Iron Mask. As for Louis, he lost all but one of his legitimate children in childhood, and he himself died a painful death from gangrene. The Hope Diamond was still part of the crown jewels when Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette were arrested and thrown in jail. When they were executed, the Queen's best friend, Marie-Louise, Princess de Lamballe, who had once borrowed the diamond, was literally torn apart by a mob.
Tell the court jeweler to stop sending diamonds.
You don't need any diamonds, do you?
Other, almost certainly untrue embellishments to the Hope Diamond's cursed history include the Russian Prince Kanatovsky, who gave his lover the diamond and subsequently murdered her, and Sultan Abdul Hamid of Turkey, who lost his throne and his lover after buying the stone. The Koh-i-Noor is a massive diamond that is currently part of the British Crown Jewels collection. It didn't originate anywhere near the British Isles, however, and when it came into Queen Victoria's possession in 1850, it was delivered with a note. He who owns this diamond will own the world, but will also know all its misfortunes. Only God or woman can wear it with impunity. According to the World History Encyclopedia, no one is quite sure when or where it originated. Some people think it's mentioned in texts as old as the 4th century BC, and most accept that it was mined in the Indian subcontinent somewhere between 1100 and 1300. But a stone so big was only fit for a king, and we know that by either the mid-1500s or mid-1600s, the Koh-i-Noor was displayed in the Mughal royal family's peacock throne. The stone remained in the family's possession until 1739, when the Persian leader Nader Shah led an attack on Delhi and looted the throne. From there, it spent the next 70 bloody years being passed among rulers, including what Smithsonian Magazine says was a king who blinded his own son and a deposed ruler whose shaved head was coronated with molten gold. In 1813, the diamond was returned to India, but when the East India Company won the Second Anglo-Sikh War in 1849, it demanded the Koh-i-Noor as part of the peace treaty. The company then arranged for it to be given to Queen Victoria. The royal family seems to have taken the curse seriously. Since they acquired the diamond, it has only been set in jewelry pieces and small crowns meant for queens. Even before it was delayed for a year and almost canceled entirely, the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games were running into trouble. Japan Times says it reminded people about the curse supposedly placed on Tokyo and the area around the Olympic Stadium in particular, the Tokugawa curse. According to The Guardian, in the 10th century, a man named Taira no Masakado, dubbed the First Samurai, decided he'd been chosen by the sun goddess to be the emperor. The actual emperor took issue with this, especially when Masakado seized 2 provinces. A bounty was put on his head, and Masakado was subsequently killed and decapitated. His head was brought to what is modern-day Kyoto, Japan's then capital, and hung from a tree in the marketplace. But rumors quickly spread. Masakado's mother had been a serpent, butterflies and rainbows had appeared before his rebellion, and his head had howled for its body before it eventually flew away. His daughter moved into Masakado's ruined fortress, where she took up necromancy and built an army of frogs. What Masakado had really done, though, was show the emperor wasn't all-powerful. Soon others rose up, and the Tokugawa shogunate ruled Japan for the next 250 years, emperors and all but name. Once they were overthrown in 1868, everything bad that happened in the area near Masakado's grave was blamed on his curse. And in an interesting connection to 2020, Prince Tokugawa Ieyasu, head of the no longer in charge Tokugawa family, was tasked with organizing the 1940 Tokyo Olympics. If you wonder why you've never heard of those games, it's because they were canceled by World War II. Princess Mkabayi Kajama should have been killed as soon as she was born, according to Face to Face Africa. The Zulu people had a belief that twins were cursed, but Mkabayi and her twin sister were allowed to live by their father, King Jama. His subjects were upset by the decision and proceeded to blame everything bad that happened to the Zulu on the curse the sisters carried. They even blamed them for their own mother's death, which happened before she could provide a male heir. Nkabayi continued to buck tradition. She found a new wife for her father, and when her father died, she became regent for her young half-brother, even though no woman had ever held that position before. The Zulu called her a bloodthirsty despot, although she did step down voluntarily when her brother was old enough. 20 years later, his son Shaka Zulu, Nkabayi's nephew, would ascend to the throne. Shaka was a very successful king, but he was also very violent. He killed the women he got pregnant, along with anyone he decided had crossed him. Eventually, Nkabayi arranged for his brothers to kill him. As he died, legend says he cursed the Zulu. "You will never rule this land. It will be ruled by the sparrows, who will fly across the sea and build their nests high up on cliffs." It's said this curse brought the white invaders who overthrew the next king. The curse of Nkabayi led to the curse of Shaka, which led to the defeat of the Zulu.